The Galactic Academy of Unified Species was the biggest school in the known universe. Students came from over 300 different worlds to study there. They learned science, history, and how to live together in peace. The academy floated in space, a massive station made of glass and metal that shined like a jewel against the black sky. For 200 years, the academy had welcomed every kind of alien. Creatures with tentacles sat next to beings made of living crystal. Students who breathed methane shared classrooms with those who needed pure oxygen. The academy had seen everything, but they had never seen a human before. Kim. Yuna arrived on a transport ship on a cold Monday morning. She was 17 years old, with long black hair and dark brown eyes. She was small, even by human standards, and she walked with quiet steps that made almost no sound. When she smiled, which was often, her whole face seemed to light up. The other students watched her with a mix of fear and curiosity. They whispered to each other in the hallways. They pointed at her when they thought she was not looking. Everyone knew what Earth was. Everyone knew why humans were so terrifying. Earth was classified as a Category 9 Deathworld. This was the highest danger rating any planet could receive. On Earth, everything wanted to kill you. The animals had claws and fangs and venom. The plants could poison you or trap you or eat you alive. The weather could freeze you, burn you, drown you, or blow you away. Even the tiny creatures you could not see could invade your body and destroy you from the inside. And somehow, humans had survived all of this. They had not just survived. They had conquered their planet. They had built cities and machines and weapons. They had tamed the deadliest creatures and bent nature to their will. The galaxy had only known about humans for 50 years. In that short time, they had spread across dozens of worlds. They adapted to any environment. They learned any skill. They refused to give up, no matter how hard things became. Yuna knew what the other students thought about her. She could see the fear in their eyes. She understood why they kept their distance. So she made herself as small and harmless as possible. She spoke softly. She moved slowly. She smiled at everyone and never raised her voice. Her roommate was a Velix named Tora. The Velix were a gentle species that looked like large moths. They had soft fur, delicate wings, and big compound eyes that could see colors humans could not imagine. Tora was beautiful in a strange way, with wings that shimmered purple and gold when the light hit them. When Tora first met Yuna, she was so scared that she could not speak. She pressed herself against the wall of their shared room, her wings trembling. Her species was prey on their homeworld. Every instinct told her that this human was dangerous. Yuna did not approach her. She simply sat down on her bed, pulled out a book, and began to read. She did not stare at Tora. She did not make any sudden movements. She just existed quietly, peacefully, as if Tora was not even there. It took 3 days for Tora to speak her first words to Yuna. It took a week for her to stop flinching whenever Yuna entered the room. It took a month for them to become friends. Yuna learned everything about Tora. She learned that Velix could not handle loud noises. She learned that they needed special lighting to sleep. She learned that they loved sweet foods and hated anything sour. And she adjusted her behavior to make Tora comfortable. One evening, Tora asked her why she tried so hard. Yuna looked up from her homework and smiled. "Because you are my friend?" she said. "Friends take care of each other." Tora's wings fluttered happily. She had never met anyone like Yuna before. The human girl was kind and patient and gentle. She did not seem dangerous at all. But Tora did not know everything about her roommate. She did not know that Yuna had trained in martial arts since she was 5 years old. She did not know that Yuna had survived a camping trip gone wrong when she was 12, spending 3 days alone in the wilderness before rescue came. She did not know that Yuna's gentle nature was a choice, not a weakness. On Earth, The soft-spoken ones were often the most dangerous. They had nothing to prove. They had no need to show off their strength. They simply waited, watched, and acted when necessary. Across the academy, 3 students had noticed a new human. They were from the Varax Dominion, a species of apex predators from a mid-level world. The Varax looked somewhat like lizards that walked on 2 legs. They had sharp claws, powerful tails, and eyes that could see perfectly in the dark. On their homeworld, they were the top of the food chain. Park. Jinho was their leader. He was tall and strong, with scales that shimmered dark purple. His family was rich and powerful. He had grown up believing that he could take whatever he wanted from whoever he wanted. The academy's rules bored him. The peaceful students disgusted him. He craved excitement. He craved the hunt. His 2 friends, Lee Sumin and Choi Hana, were just like him. Sumin was clever and cruel, with a talent for planning. Hana was fast and vicious, always eager for violence. Together, the 3 of them had terrorized weaker students for years. They were careful never to get caught. They knew how to pick victims who were too scared to report them. When they saw Yuna, they saw the perfect prey. She was small and alone. She came from a Deathworld, yes, but she seemed so harmless. So weak. So easy to break. Jinho watched her walk across the courtyard, her steps light and graceful. He imagined the fear in her eyes when she realized she was being hunted. He imagined her screams echoing in the empty corridors. His claws extended with anticipation. She walks alone after her last class, Sumin reported after a week of watching. The path to her dormitory goes through the maintenance sector. No cameras there. No witnesses. Perfect, Jinho said, his fangs gleaming in the low light. We will take her tomorrow night. Hana laughed, a cold and ugly sound. I cannot wait to see a Deathworlder beg for mercy. They did not know that Yuna had already noticed them. They did not know that she had felt their eyes on her for days. On Earth, such awareness meant the difference between life and death. Prey that ignored warning signs became food. Yuna had never ignored a warning sign in her life. She said nothing to anyone. She did not report them to the teachers. She simply watched them back, quietly noting their patterns, their weaknesses, their overconfidence, and she began to prepare. The next day passed like any other. Yuna attended her classes, took her notes, and smiled at her classmates. She ate lunch with Tora in the cafeteria, listening to her friend talk about a project she was working on. She laughed at the right moments and asked questions when expected. Nobody noticed anything different about her. But inside, Yuna was counting down the hours. She knew tonight would be the night. She had watched Jinho and his friends long enough to understand their patterns. They were getting impatient. They were ready to strike. After her last class, Yuna walked to the maintenance sector as she always did. This part of the academy was old and rarely used. The lights were dim, and the corridors were narrow. Pipes ran along the ceiling, and the air smelled of metal and oil. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Yuna had discovered this route during her first week at the academy. Most students avoided it because it was dark and lonely. But Yuna liked the quiet. It gave her time to think. It also gave her privacy to practice the movements she had learned as a child, the martial arts that her grandmother had taught her. Tonight, she walked a little slower than usual. She wanted to give them time to get into position. She wanted them to feel confident. Overconfident prey was easy to catch. Overconfident predators were even easier. Behind her, 3 shadows moved through the darkness. Jinho led the way, his night vision eyes picking out every detail of the corridor. Sumin followed close behind, her claws already extended. Hana brought up the rear, her tail swishing with excitement. They had done this many times before. They knew how to move silently. They knew how to trap their victims. They knew how to make them scream without anyone hearing. What they did not know was that Yuna could hear them anyway. Humans had evolved to detect threats in the darkness. Their ears could pick up the smallest sounds. Their skin could feel changes in air pressure. Their brains could process danger signals before their conscious minds even knew what was happening. Yuna heard the soft scrape of claws on metal. She felt the slight movement of air as the three Varaks spread out behind her. She knew exactly where each of them was standing. She knew exactly when they would attack, but she kept walking, her steps calm and steady. She wanted them to make the first move. She wanted them to commit to their attack. It would make what came next so much easier to justify. Jinho finally spoke, his voice echoing in the empty corridor. "Hello, little human." Yuna stopped walking. She turned around slowly, as if she was surprised to see them there. Her face showed just the right amount of fear. Her body language screamed helpless victim. "You are far from home," Jinho continued, stepping into the dim light. His scales gleamed like wet stone. His fangs were long and sharp. He looked every bit the predator he believed himself to be. "What do you want?" Yuna asked, her voice small and trembling. She took a step backward, as if she wanted to run but was too scared to move. Su-min laughed from her position on the left. "She is so small," she said. "I thought Deathworlders would be bigger." "Size does not matter when you are prey," Hana added from the right. She flexed her claws, making sure Yuna could see how sharp they were. Jinho walked closer, enjoying the moment. This was his favorite part of the hunt. The moment when the prey realized there was no escape. The moment when hope died in their eyes. "We have been watching you," he said. "Quiet little human. Always alone. Always so polite." He stopped just a few feet away from her. "Did you really think you were safe here? Did you think the Academy's rules would protect you?" Yuna looked up at him with wide eyes. "Please," she whispered. "I have not done anything to you. Just let me go." "But where is the fun in that?" Jinho reached out to grab her shoulder. His claws never touched her. Yuna moved faster than his eyes could follow. One moment she was cowering in front of him. The next, she was behind him, and his arm was twisted at an angle that sent waves of pain through his entire body. Jinho screamed. He had never felt pain like this before. His species was tough. They could survive injuries that would kill most other beings. But this human girl had found a weakness in his joints that he did not even know existed. "What?" he tried to say, but Yuna twisted harder, and the words turned into another scream. Su-min and Hana froze. They could not understand what they were seeing. Their leader, the strongest among them, was on his knees, crying out in agony. And the small human girl was holding him there with one hand. "I am going to explain something to you," Yuna said. Her voice was different now. It was not soft or trembling. It was calm and cold, like ice water. "You made a mistake tonight. You thought that because I am small and quiet, I must be weak. You thought that because I am kind, I must be helpless." She applied more pressure to Jinho's arm. He whimpered like a child. "On my planet, we have a saying. Beware the quiet ones. Do you know why?" She did not wait for an answer. "Because the loud ones are showing off. They are trying to scare you away. But the quiet ones, they have nothing to prove. They do not need to threaten you. They simply act." Hana finally recovered from her shock. She charged at Yuna, her claws aimed at the human's throat. She was fast, faster than almost anyone at the Academy. But Yuna was faster. She released Jinho and spun to face Hana. Her hand shot out, striking Hana in the throat with perfect precision. The Varak's girl stopped in mid-stride, her eyes bulging, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to breathe. A second strike to her stomach doubled her over. A third strike to the back of her head sent her crashing to the floor. Su-min turned to run. She did not get far. Yuna caught up with her in 3 steps. She grabbed Sumin's tail and pulled, sending the Varax spinning off balance. Before Sumin could recover, Yuna was on top of her, one knee pressing into her back, both arms pinned behind her. "Please," Sumin gasped. "Please, we are sorry. We will never bother you again. Just let us go." Yuna leaned close to her ear. "You wanted to hurt me," she said quietly. "You wanted to make me scream. You wanted to feel powerful." She tightened her grip until Sumin cried out. "How does it feel? Being helpless? Being afraid? Knowing that your life is in someone else's hands?" Jinho tried to stand up, but his arm was not working properly. He fell back to his knees, tears streaming down his scaled face. "What are you?" he whispered. Yuan looked at him over her shoulder. Her eyes were dark and empty, like deep water with no bottom. "I am human," she said simply. "And on Earth, we are not the strongest or the fastest. We do not have claws or fangs or venom. We survived by being the most dangerous thing in any room we enter. We just learned to hide it behind smiles and soft words." She stood up, releasing Sumin, who immediately curled into a ball and began to sob. Hana was still unconscious on the floor. Jinho could not stop shaking. Yuna looked at the 3 of them, the predators who had thought they were hunting her. They looked pathetic now, broken, terrified. "Now," she said, her voice returning to its normal, gentle tone, "we need to talk about what happens next." Jinho stared at the human girl standing above him. His arm hung at his side, useless and screaming with pain. His friends lay on the cold metal floor, one unconscious, the other crying. They had come here to hunt. They had become the hunted instead. He tried to understand what had just happened. The fight, if it could even be called that, had lasted less than 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That was all it took for this small, soft creature to destroy them completely. How? He managed to ask. "How did you do that?" Yuna tilted her head slightly, as if the question amused her. "Do you know what makes humans different from other species?" she asked. "It is not our strength. Many beings are stronger than us. It is not our speed. Many beings are faster. It is not our senses. Many beings can see and hear and smell better than we can." She walked slowly around the fallen Varax, her footsteps light and silent. "What makes us different is that we never stop learning. We never stopped adapting. For thousands of years, we fought everything our planet threw at us. We fought animals with fangs and claws. We fought diseases we could not see. We fought weather that could kill us in minutes. And every time something tried to destroy us, we found a way to destroy it instead." Jinho watched her move. Even now, even knowing how dangerous she was, he could barely see her as a threat. She looked so harmless, so innocent. It was terrifying. "My grandmother taught me to fight when I was 5 years old," Yuna continued. "Not because she wanted me to hurt people, because she wanted me to survive. On Earth, children learn early that the world is dangerous. We learn to see threats before they become problems. We learn to react faster than our enemies expect. We learn that kindness is a choice, and so is violence." She stopped in front of Jinho and crouched down so she could look into his eyes. "You thought you were predators," she said softly. "But you have never been hunted before. You have never faced something that could truly hurt you. You grew up safe and comfortable, playing at being dangerous." Her hand reached out and touched his face, almost gently. He flinched, expecting pain, but none came. "I grew up on a Deathworld," she said. "Every day of my life, I faced something that could kill me. I learned to read danger in the way the air moved. I learned to hear threats in the smallest sounds. I learned that hesitation means death and mercy is a luxury." She stood up and stepped back. "But I also learned something else. I learned that power without control is just destruction. I learned that being able to hurt someone does not mean you should. I learned that true strength is knowing when not to fight. Su Min finally stopped crying. She looked up at Yuna with red eyes, her whole body still shaking. "Then why did you fight us?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "If you believe in not fighting, why did you hurt us?" Yuna's expression did not change. "Because you gave me no choice," she said. "You planned to hurt me. You have hurt others before." I saw the fear in the eyes of the smaller students when they looked at you. I heard the stories they whispered when they thought no one was listening. She paused, letting her words sink in. "I could have reported you to the teachers. I could have asked for protection, but that would only have made you more careful. You would have waited until the attention died down, and then you would have found another victim. Someone smaller, someone weaker, someone who could not fight back." Jinho felt shame rising in his chest, mixing with the pain and fear. He wanted to deny her words, but he could not. She was right. They had done this before. They had hurt others. They had enjoyed it. "So I decided to teach you a lesson instead," Yuna said. "Not with words. Words do not work on people like you. I taught you with pain, with fear, with the understanding of what it feels like to be helpless." Hana groaned and started to wake up. She tried to move, but her body would not cooperate. Every muscle ached. Her head felt like it was full of broken glass. What happened? She mumbled, not remembering the last few minutes. "You lost," Su Min told her quietly. "We all lost." Yuna watched Hana struggle to sit up. There was no satisfaction in her eyes, no pride in her victory. She looked almost sad. "On Earth we have another saying," she said. "Those who live by the sword, die by the sword." It means that if you choose violence as your way of life, violence will eventually find you. You three chose to be predators. Tonight, you met something higher on the food chain. Jinho finally managed to stand, though his legs felt weak and unsteady. His arms still would not move properly. He looked at Yuna, really looked at her, and saw her for the first time. She was not just a small human girl. She was a survivor of the deadliest planet in the known galaxy. She carried generations of evolution in her muscles and bones. Her ancestors had faced extinction 100 times and won every single time. She was the result of millions of years of natural selection, shaped by a world that showed no mercy, and she had been holding back. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She had defeated them easily, quickly, without even trying very hard. She had not used weapons. She had not used any special equipment. She had used only her hands and her knowledge of how bodies worked. If she had wanted to kill them, they would already be dead. "What are you going to do with us?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She seemed to be thinking, considering her options. The three Varaks waited in terrified silence. "That depends on you," she finally said. "I am going to give you a choice. A real choice, not the fake choice you gave to your victims." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like a pen, but Jinho recognized it immediately. It was a neural disruptor, a medical tool used to treat certain brain conditions. In the wrong hands, it could be used to erase memories. "Option 1, Yuna said, holding up the device. "I use this on all three of you. You wake up tomorrow with no memory of tonight. You will not remember attacking me. You will not remember losing. You will just feel a strange fear whenever you see me, a fear you cannot explain." She put the device back in her pocket. "Option 2. I report you to the Academy authorities. I have evidence of your attack. I have records of your previous crimes. You will be expelled, probably arrested. Your families will be shamed. Your futures will be destroyed." The three Varaks exchanged glances. Neither option was good, but one was clearly better than the other. And option 3? Hana asked weakly, sensing there might be more. Yuna smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Option 3 is the one where I stop being nice. I do not recommend it. Jinho did not want to know what option 3 involved. Option 1, he said quickly. We choose option 1. Sumin and Hana nodded in agreement. Good choice, Yuna said. Her smile became warmer, almost friendly. I was hoping you would say that. Yuna worked quickly and carefully. She had planned for this moment since she first noticed the 3 Varaks following her. On Earth, you always planned for the worst. You hoped for the best, but you prepared for disaster. First, she needed to secure her prisoners. She found some maintenance cables in a nearby storage room and used them to tie up Jinho, Sumin, and Hana. They did not resist. The fight had left them completely broken. They sat against the wall like 3 large, scared children, watching her with wide eyes. I need to check something, Yuna told them. Do not move. Not that you could go anywhere. She walked down the corridor to a control panel she had discovered during her first week at the academy. The maintenance sector was old, and its security systems were not as good as the rest of the station. With a few touches, she accessed the camera feeds for the entire section. Just as she expected, the cameras showed nothing but empty hallways. She had looped the footage earlier that day, replacing the live feed with recordings from the previous night. Anyone watching the security monitors would see nothing unusual. Just empty corridors, hour after hour. Yuna smiled to herself. Humans were good with technology. They had to be. On Earth, technology was one of the ways they survived against bigger, stronger, faster creatures. They built tools when nature did not give them weapons. They built shelters when their bodies could not handle the elements. They built machines when their muscles were not enough. And they built security systems that could be hacked by a clever teenager with too much time on her hands. She returned to her prisoners and crouched down in front of them. The cameras saw nothing, she said. As far as the academy knows, none of us were here tonight. Jinho looked at her with something close to respect. You planned this, he said. All of it. You let us follow you. You let us think we had the advantage. Yes, Yuna admitted. I knew you would attack eventually. I wanted to control when and where it happened. The maintenance sector was perfect. Dark. Quiet. No witnesses. Everything you wanted in a hunting ground. Everything you wanted too, Sumin said quietly, understanding dawning in her eyes. Yuna nodded. On Earth, we call this a trap. You set the bait, you wait for the prey to come, and then you spring the trap at the perfect moment. The predator becomes the prey. It is one of the oldest tricks we have. She pulled out the neural disruptor again. It was a simple device, shaped like a thick pen with a glowing tip. Medical staff used it to help patients with certain memory disorders. But it could also be used to erase recent memories if applied correctly. This will not hurt, Yuna said, holding up the device. You will feel sleepy, and then you will wake up in your beds tomorrow morning. The last 12 hours will be gone. You will not remember following me. You will not remember the fight. You will not remember this conversation. But we will remember something, Hana said. It was not a question. Yuna considered her words carefully. Your conscious minds will forget everything, but your instincts will remember. Deep down, in a place you cannot reach with words or thoughts, you will know that something happened. You will feel afraid when you see me, even if you do not know why. You will want to stay away from me, even if you cannot explain it. She paused. Think of it as a warning from your own brain. A warning that says this human is dangerous. Do not approach. Do not threaten. Do not hunt. Jinho closed his eyes. He did not want this. He did not want to forget. but he knew it was better than the alternatives. At least this way, his life would continue. His future would remain intact. He would just have a strange fear that he could not explain. "Do it," he said. Yuna pressed the device against his temple. There was a soft humming sound, and Jinho's eyes went blank. He slumped against the wall, unconscious, breathing slowly and steadily. He looked peaceful, almost innocent. She moved to zoom in next. The Varax girl looked at her one last time, her eyes full of questions she would never remember asking. "Why are you doing this?" Su-min asked. "Why not just report us? We deserve to be punished." Yuna thought about the question. "Because punishment does not change people," she said. "It just makes them more careful about getting caught. This way, you will change. Not because you chose to, but because your body will not let you forget, even if your mind does." She pressed the device against Su-min's temple. Another soft hum, and Su-min joined Jinho in unconscious sleep. Hana was last. She did not fight or beg. She just stared at Yuna with something that might have been curiosity. "I have one question," Hana said. "If we had not attacked you tonight, if we had never followed you, would you have lived your whole time at this academy without anyone knowing what you really are?" Yuna smiled sadly. "Yes," she said. "I would have been the quiet human girl who smiled at everyone and never caused trouble. I would have made friends, attended classes, graduated with good marks. Nobody would have known." "That seems lonely," Hana said. "It is," Yuna admitted. "But it is safer. For everyone. The galaxy is not ready to know what humans are really capable of. They see us as soft and weak because that is what we show them. If they knew the truth, they would fear us. And fear leads to hatred. Hatred leads to war." She pressed the device against Hana's temple. "Sleep well." Hana's eyes closed, and she slumped against her friends. Yuna stood up and stretched her arms. The hard part was over. Now came the tedious work. She untied the 3 Varax one by one. Then she lifted Jinho onto her shoulders and carried him out of the maintenance sector. He was heavy, much heavier than a human of the same size would be. But Yuna had trained for this. Humans had evolved as persistent predators. They could not run fast, but they could keep going long after other creatures. Collapsed from exhaustion, she carried Jinho through the empty corridors, avoiding the few students who were still awake at this hour. She knew the academy's layout perfectly. She knew which routes were watched and which were blind spots. In 15 minutes, she reached the Varax dormitory. Getting inside was easy. The door locks were simple compared to the ones on Earth. She found Jinho's room and laid him on his bed. She removed his shoes and pulled the blanket over him. He looked like he had simply fallen asleep after a long day. She repeated the process with Su-min and Hana. Each trip took about 20 minutes. By the time she finished, 3 hours had passed, and her muscles were burning with exhaustion. But she was not done yet. She returned to the maintenance sector and cleaned up every trace of the fight. She wiped down the surfaces where blood had dripped from Jinho's injured arm. She straightened the pipes that had been dented during the struggle. She removed the cables she had used to tie them up and disposed of them in a recycling unit. Finally, she checked the camera system one last time. The loop was still running. In a few hours, it would automatically revert to the live feed, and nobody would ever know that the footage had been altered. Yuna walked back to her dormitory as the first light of the artificial dawn began to brighten the academy's corridors. She was tired, more tired than she had been in years. But she felt satisfied. The predators had learned their lesson. The evidence was gone. And tomorrow, everything would go back to normal. She slipped into her room quietly. Tora was still asleep, her wings wrapped around her body like a cocoon. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. She had no idea what had happened tonight. Yuna changed into her pajamas and climbed into bed. Within seconds, she was asleep. She did not dream. Jinho woke up with the worst headache of his life. His skull felt like it was being crushed from the inside. His mouth was dry, and his body ached in ways he could not explain. He tried to remember what had happened last night, but his memory was blank. He sat up slowly and looked around his room. Everything seemed normal. His belongings were where he had left them. His datapad sat on his desk, showing no new messages. The artificial sunlight streamed through his window, warm and peaceful. But something felt wrong. Something felt very, very wrong. He got out of bed and noticed that his arm hurt. He rolled up his sleeve and saw bruises around his wrist and elbow. They were dark and ugly, like something had grabbed him hard enough to damage the tissue beneath his scales. What happened to me? He muttered. He could not remember. No matter how hard he tried, the previous night was simply gone. The last thing he remembered was eating dinner in the cafeteria. After that, nothing. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from Su-min. Something strange happened. Come to my room. Bring Hannah. Jinho found his two friends in Su-min's room. They looked as confused and scared as he felt. Hannah had bruises on her neck and stomach. Su-min had scrapes on her arms and back. None of them could remember how they had gotten injured. I woke up in my bed, Hannah said, her voice shaking. But I have no memory of going to sleep. The last thing I remember is dinner. Then nothing until this morning. Same for me, Su-min added. I checked my datapad, my schedule, everything. There is no record of where I was last night. It is like those hours just disappeared. Jinho looked at his arm again. The bruises were shaped like fingers. Someone had grabbed him. Someone had hurt him. But he could not remember who or why. We need to go to the medical center, he said. Something happened to us? Maybe they can figure out what. But as soon as he said the words, a strange feeling washed over him. Fear. Deep, primal fear that started in his gut and spread through his entire body. He did not want to investigate. He did not want to know what had happened. He wanted to forget about it and never think about it again. I do not think we should, Hannah said slowly. She looked as confused by her own words as Jinho felt. I think we should just let this go. Su-min nodded. Yes, whatever happened, maybe it is better if we do not know. They looked at each other. Three predators who had never been afraid of anything, now terrified of a mystery they could not solve. It made no sense. They were strong. They were powerful. They had faced danger many times before, but this fear was different. It was not logical. It was not something they could fight or overcome. It was burned into their very being, a warning that screamed at them to leave this alone. Okay, Jinho finally said. We forget about it. We never speak of this again. His friends agreed. They would pretend that last night had never happened. They would ignore their injuries, ignore the gaps in their memory, ignore the nameless terror that gripped them. Whenever they thought about investigating Dodd, it was easier this way. Safer. 3 days passed. Jinho tried to return to his normal life. He attended classes, ate meals with his friends, and pretended everything was fine. But nothing was fine. The fear had not gone away. If anything, it had grown stronger. And it always got worse around one particular person, the human girl. Every time Jinho saw Kim Yuna, his heart raced. His palms sweated. His instincts screamed at him to run, to hide, to get as far away from her as possible. He did not know why. She was small and harmless. She smiled at everyone and spoke in a soft voice. There was nothing threatening about her, but his body knew something his mind did not. His body remembered what his brain had forgotten. One day, he found himself walking toward her in the cafeteria. He did not plan to do it. His feet just carried him in her direction while his mind screamed at him to stop. He needed to understand. He needed to know why this human made him so afraid. Yuna was sitting with her roommate, the moth-like Velix named Tora. They were laughing about something, looking happy and relaxed. When Yuna noticed Jinho approaching, she looked up with a polite smile. "Can I help you?" she asked. Jin-Ho opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Up close, the fear was almost unbearable. Every muscle in his body wanted to flee. His claws extended instinctively, even though he had no intention of fighting. Yuna watched him struggle with patient eyes. There was no malice in her expression, no anger or triumph. She just waited, as calm as still water. No, Jinho finally managed to say. "Nothing. Sorry to bother you." He turned and walked away as quickly as he could without running. His friends were waiting for him at their usual table, watching with wide eyes. "What was that about?" Su Min asked. "I do not know," Jinho admitted. I needed to see her up close. I thought maybe I could figure out why she scares me so much." And? Hana leaned forward eagerly. "Nothing." Jinho shook his head. "She is just a small human girl. There is nothing special about her. Nothing threatening. But when I looked into her eyes, I felt like I was staring at death itself." His friends exchanged worried glances. They had noticed their own reactions to the human. The way their hearts beat faster when she walked past. The way they always found excuses to leave when she entered a room. The way their dreams had become dark and frightening since that mysterious night across the cafeteria. A tall human man watched the exchange with quiet interest. Instructor Bellamy was the Academy's human liaison. His job was to help Yuna adjust to life away from Earth. But he also had another job. One that only a few people knew about. He was a handler for young humans who showed exceptional potential. Bellamy had received Yuna's report 2 days ago. It was brief and professional, written in the coded language they used for sensitive information. 3 hostile students neutralized. No permanent damage. Memories erased. Evidence destroyed. No complications. He made a note in her file. Exceptional problem-solving under pressure. Remains calm in dangerous situations. Shows restraint when violence is not necessary. Recommend for advanced placement in human-galactic relations. Yuna would go far, he knew. She had the skills. She had the temperament. And most importantly, she understood the mission. Humanity was new to the galactic community. They needed allies, not enemies. They needed to appear friendly and harmless while slowly building their power and influence. They needed to be the helpful neighbors that everyone liked and trusted. But they also needed to be prepared. The galaxy was not a safe place. There were species out there that would destroy humanity if they ever saw them as a threat. So humans had to be careful. They had to hide their true nature behind smiles and soft words. Until the day when they no longer needed to hide. In the cafeteria, Tora looked at her roommate with curious eyes. "What was that about?" she asked. "That Varax boy looked terrified of you." Yuna shrugged and returned to her lunch. Who knows? Maybe he just wanted to say hello. Some people get nervous around humans. They think we are all dangerous because we come from a death world. "That is so silly," Tora said, her wings fluttering with amusement. "You are the gentlest person I know." "Thank you, Tora. That is very kind of you to say." Yuna smiled at her friend, and the smile was genuine. She liked Tora. She liked many of the students here. She hoped she would never have to show them what she was really capable of. But she was ready. If the time ever came. As she finished her meal, she allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. The predators had learned their lesson. They would never hunt again. They would spend the rest of their lives with an unexplainable fear of humans. A fear that would make them think twice before threatening anyone. It was not justice. Not really. Justice would have been putting them on trial, making them face the consequences of their actions. But justice was complicated. Justice meant evidence and witnesses and long legal processes. Justice meant everyone knowing what had happened. This was simpler, cleaner, more effective. On Earth, predators learned quickly which prey was too dangerous to hunt. It seemed the lesson translated across the stars. Kim, Yuna was just a quiet exchange student. Small, friendly, harmless. Anyone who threatened her or her friends would learn the truth too late. Humanity had survived the Deathworld. They had conquered their planet and reached for the stars. They had faced extinction 100 times and won every single battle. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the fastest or the toughest or the most advanced, but they were the most dangerous dot, and they were just getting started.